Hello! Now that we're back on schedule, I'm gonna keep going. Now, the chapters I am looking at in this one are Talons and Tea Leaves and the Bogart in the Wardrobe. And the reason why I'm really sort of looking at these two together, of course, is this is sort of our first week at school with Harry. Like, in actual classes, because we get the first classes for actually 5 different classes. So we have divination, we have transfiguration, though we don't get a whole lot of that. We got magical creatures, potions, and defense against the dark arts, which are all super fun classes. Though, as we see from here, of course, some of them not quite so fun. Like Harry's got his death predicted in divination. No one's paying attention in transfiguration because of that. And Snape. And then, of course, on the other side, we have magical creature certainly goes wrong because Draco gets injured. And Harry's not feeling super great after Defense Against the Dark Arts because he has some questions about why Professor Lupin stepped in when he did. So, while some of them certainly went better than others and better for other people. For example, Draco had a big problem in, of course, creatures. Not so bad in potions. Well, a lot of people had quite a bit of fun in magical creatures and don't have fun in potions. So, why am I looking at the classes? Well, while the classes themselves are interesting, unfortunately, the classes themselves cannot be applied to us readers. We aren't going to be interacting with hippogriffs anytime soon, or bogarts for that matter. And some potions, yes, are a possibility, but a shrinking solution that works the way the one we see in potions does, I don't think so. So, what then are we to take from all of these classes? Other than a very interesting story and a well-rounded world, where we see these classes actually have aspects to them and actually teach things. Well, the thing is, they teach more than what just the class is claiming to teach. What we readers get to draw from this is actually these other lessons that we're being taught through these classes. Sure, we might not be able to read tea leaves the way the gang are here. We don't have Unfogging the Future to help us with that. But the lesson of different perspectives come in here. We actually get several different accounts of what's in Harry's cup and how serious this art is. So Ron sees it as a sheep, Trelawney sees it as a grim, I think is it Seamus that sees it as a donkey? Or Dean? Oh, I'm always getting the two of them mixed up. And Hermione, like, she's just like, no, doesn't really look like a grim to me at all. Like, these are different perspectives, and it's all based on how much you already know outside of things, and the way you're actually looking. Like, Dean or Seamus, again, I can't remember who, like, he has to squint to see a grim. Like, that's a very obvious, different perspective. Hermione and Harry and Seamus and Lavender don't immediately understand what a grim is. And this is a possibility simply because they were Muggle raised. They don't understand, they don't have that aspect, that fairy tale side of things. The grim is like our... oh God. Well, it's our boogeyman, isn't it? Like, it's just this terrifying thing that exists out there on the other side of everything that we need to be afraid of. Because if we cross that line, then And I mean, once the students are then filled in, oh, it's an omen of death. Again, we have a couple that are just like, ah. Harry's just sort of like, cool, thanks. Like, he's well aware that he's always been in danger. He certainly has some questions afterwards about whether or not this dog he saw before was a Grim, but he's just like, yeah, if we could just, you know, move on. And that points out to people that they're making judgment calls without even remembering that he's sort of a person sitting right there. Like, they're so into their perspectives that they can't really remember that maybe other people have other perspectives. Like, Harry's just sort of like, cool. If this is real or if it's not, it's my problem, not yours. Can we move on? Hermione's still like, it's not actually a thing, and Ron's like, it's definitely a thing, and Harry is going, even if it is, it does not concern you guys. Like, this is me and my life, and you guys need to, because no one's going after Lavender going, what's going to happen in October? Like, no one's going after Pavarti going, watch out for the red-headed man. Like, they sort of at least recognize that that's their business, and they only get involved once they've been invited in. Because their perspectives on those things don't matter. But they seem to think when it comes to Harry that their perspectives do. And I think this is something we need to be careful about, because everybody's going to see their own lives differently. And while some advice is nice, you don't have to give it constantly. And people aren't going to want to hear your advice constantly. If they want your advice, they will ask for it. But your perspective is different from them. And what they need isn't necessarily what you think they need. And divination sort of shows us that, because this is a lot of perspectives just crashing together, and no one's really backing off to let Harry have some space and figure this stuff out. Until, of course, we get to Transfiguration, where we learn about this back off and leave it. Like McGonagall, that's exactly what she does. She herself does not believe in divination that much, but she stops herself from deriding it completely. She tells him simply, this is something that Trelawney's always done, it's a way to get the class's attention. Harry, as far as I'm concerned, you look fine, so you're still going to have to do your homework. If you are dead, you don't have to hand it in. But she stops herself every time she would be becoming negative, because she knows her perspective is not important here. Like, McGonagall's actually showing us, okay, yeah, you need to just let people be. I get to see you're a little nervous, so I will reassure you personally. From my perspective, you're fine. I'll make a little bit of a joke out of it, and then we move on, because it's not my place to judge. And that's what I absolutely love about McGonagall here, is she's willing to sort of look at the problem, address it as she can address it and needs to address it. Because she needs to, she can't just ignore it. But she also knows that she can't completely, like, just harp on her colleague. She knows that is not her place. And she stops. Okay. Care of magical creatures. Lesson learned from this one, rudeness is going to get you hurt. Plain and simple. Even if we are not going to meet hippogriffs anytime soon, Draco has certainly taught us that if you're an asshole, especially to someone's face, like, you're going to get hurt. Rudeness is not going to get you places. Unless that place is the hospital wing. Like, you need to be polite and respectful to move forward. Again, you need to back off when somebody does not want you to come within their space. Like, Harry recognizes, Neville recognizes this. Like, he's repeatedly just like, nope, okay, you don't want me near you. Let's try again. No, okay. He's sort of panicked in doing it, but he's doing the right thing. Draco having decided he's gotten to a certain point, decides that he no longer has to be respectful, which is not how it works, even within friendships. Like, when you're friends, you can be a little more critical of each other. You can jokingly insult each other, but you still can't, like, full out insult somebody, who, even if they are your friend, and expect there not to be consequences. Rudeness is going to have consequences, and it might be short term, it might be long term. It might be small, it might be big, but there are going to be consequences. And really, Draco has taught us that you can't then say, oh, it's not my fault. Because if you do that, you're just going to come off worse for everybody else. Like, if you're rude and you pay the consequences for it, own up. And just, you know, recognize that you shouldn't do that. And then potions. Oh god. I recognize in the end of this series, not even just the end, I recognize that when it comes to Snape, a lot of mistakes were made. James and Sirius and Remus and Peter were bullies to him. He was a bully too. Because it is, unfortunately, a cycle. That if you're picked on too much, then you will start picking on people that are smaller than you. But this man should not be teaching children. This was actually a really hard section of the chapter for me to read. Looking back on it now, I know my situation certainly wasn't as severe as Harry's and Neville's here, and it wasn't as severe as other people who have spoken with me. But I did have a professor that was abusive. I mean, like, he didn't hit students or anything like that, but he was mentally and emotionally abusive to the class. He never got a question right. You were either wrong or the question was rhetorical. Even if you went out and did your own research and brought proof of your argument, he ignored you. It seemed at the time like he had favorites, but having spoken to some of those people afterwards, I found that they were in as bad a situation as the rest of the class were, just in a lot of different ways. And so, what this has taught me is that going against an authority figure that is going to ruin you is not a bad thing. It is an okay thing when you and yours is being hurt by it. And we see this with Neville and Hermione. Of course Hermione's going to help Neville. Snape has basically threatened to poison Neville's toad. Some people might say what Hermione did was cheating, and help Neville to cheat. But this isn't just a grade. Like, this is an abusive situation, and Hermione was right to step in. Because Snape is wrong here. You don't threaten and belittle a person to try and teach them something. That's not how people learn. Especially when you then compare him to how Lupin actually goes through the class. And reassuring Neville that he has trust in him. He teaches them everything they need to know, and then they do the practical side of things. I mean, he lets Neville have the power of actually defeating the thing because he knows Neville needs encouragement, not direct threats to something that Neville cares about. And I think that's a lesson that's difficult for us to handle, because we always want to be the bystander. Like, we don't want to be involved. We want to take the easy route out and say, well, it's not our problem. Except it sort of is, because in this way we just create more bullies. Like, Snape is doing that. He's doing that by allowing the Slytherins to get away with everything, and they've certainly become bullying gits. But he also risks turning Harry and Neville into extreme bullies by picking on them so much. Luckily, though, they have other people around them. Like, again, Professor Lupin recognizes this right away, and right away steps in to sort of bring Neville back from that, and show him that he can do things, and he can overcome this fear that he has. I recognize that Snape's character goes really deeply, but I don't think I can ever like him. Not when he acts like this. Defense Against the Dark Arts on this one is like a really cool class. Like, I really like this. Again, we have Professor Lupin actually, like, really logically going through this class. Okay, here's the practical stuff you need to know. And then we do the practical exploration of it. While Harry might be upset about Lupin stepping in, he had very good reasons for it. He also, in that way, willingly shows his own greatest fear to the class. They misinterpret it, but he certainly permits that to happen. He recognizes that it's a push and pull together relationship with students. The work in the classroom isn't just the professors or the students, it's them together, and so is the respect. Students aren't going to respect a prof who doesn't respect the students. And profs aren't going to respect students who don't respect the prof. You need to work together. And so everyone's showing him their worst fears. It's understandable for him to be at least willing to show his to the class. And this, I think, is the class that is most straightforward in the lesson that we can take from it, which is this idea of we can face our fears and we can defeat them through the good times. As much as our lives have these bad times that we don't want to experience and we don't like, those mean nothing without the good times. And the good times don't mean anything without the bad. I mean, we have nothing to judge either time to if we don't have the other. And so the fact that happiness and laughter can help us face our greatest fears, that we can have the worst time in the world and still come out laughing. Like, I think that's a really good lesson for us as the readers to learn. And I think it's a really good lesson in some really dark and scary times for these kids, with these Dementors around and this mass murderer on the loose, that we can still laugh. And that just makes me really happy, because I can still laugh. Okay, so we've learned some lessons alongside, and maybe slightly different from Harry and his friends, but I think we can learn some more from this book. So I'm going to keep reading, and I hope you guys do too. I'll see you next week. Bye!